What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Time NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got 11 games here on a Wednesday. James, first time going live here this week. We've had the in-season tournament games Monday and Tuesday. We'll have the in-season tournament games on Thursday as well before we come back live 5 o'clock Eastern time on Friday for the big slate there. So 2 slates we've been live for, but some fun slates that we've been previewing in the mornings these last couple of days here. In-season tournament certainly has lived up to the hype so far. Some pretty interesting matchups we've seen, but now we turn our attention here to a big 11 gamer.
Yeah, I feel like there's been more fun in the in-season tournament in the 2-game slates than there are in the 11-game slates. Like, you can pick out a few like, oh, that game should be fun, but like the vibe around the in-season tournament has just been incredibly interesting and fun and playoff-esque. And there were standing ovations in the Pacers-Boston game. There was LeBron stating he's going to beat Father Time. I mean, Kevin Durant was, I feel like Kevin Durant is like the biggest critic of everything. And he was like, yeah, didn't really like it. Now I love it. And so the in-season tournament's been fun. This slate should be fun as well. 11 games, really bad teams on the slate, pretty much everywhere. Some really bad game environments as well.
Yeah.
But there are a couple that stand out. Obviously, Atlanta, Brooklyn stands out. Philly, Washington stands out. So despite the yuck that there is in some spots, there should be a lot to like.
I did the playbook here today. There's a lot of injury news as well on this slate. You and I did the preview show this morning. At that time, there wasn't as obvious a value, obviously, with the Blazers injury news. They were both Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton quite doubtful. Jeremy Grant out. It's opened up some more value in that particular team that we've desperately needed on this slate. At the time of the recording this morning, we were also looking, well, maybe Kyrie and THJ won't play. You go back to Luka. Both of them are in that matchup against Utah. On the flip side, Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson, which were listed as questionable, they get ruled out. So now that matchup looks far less appealing when it comes to building out some lineups. So, be on the lookout for all that injury news as it continues to break. There's a lot of guys that are still questionable here that we're waiting on some statuses for. So obviously, as we say every time when it comes to the NBA, you got to have your alerts on, be around for 7 o'clock roster lock, because we got 3 games that lock at 7 here tonight. To be able to make some late swaps if you need to make sure your lineups aren't eating any zeros.
Yep, fully agree.
Let's get into it. Let's go point guard position here. Breaking it down. Luka is up at the top. He's $11,700. SGA, 10-7. Trae Young, 10-3. I initially wrote the playbook this morning. I had Luka up there in my core plays. I swapped him out for Trae Young once Kyrie and THJ got ruled in. Where are you when it comes to ranking out the top 3 guards today?
I mean, based on Luka, Trae, SGA, but SGA does have a ceiling in every matchup. It just doesn't feel like one that I'm personally looking to. I'd still rank Luka first because, Luka is what he is. Still with Kyrie, without Kyrie, doesn't matter. So I'd probably still put him first, Trae second, SGA third amongst.
Okay. Yeah, I just worry about the blowout factor with that game with Luka, and now that matchup with everybody coming like healthy and in, that spread is now sitting at 11.5 for Dallas here. So that's obviously a bit worrisome. Of course, if it gets to that point, probably has a little bit to do with Luka getting it there, but the more competitive game, Atlanta, Brooklyn. Opened at 241. It's up to 242.5 now. And Atlanta's giving 3.5 in that one. Now, Utah Dallas did open 228.5, and it's up to 233.5. So some big total jump there. Denver, LA opened at 224, up to 228 in that game. So the totals have moved up on some of these matchups since we first previewed it this morning. Even the low game totals. Memphis, Detroit was 218 up to 221. Miami, Toronto, 217 up to 220. So some of the uglier looking totals we looked at this morning, all moving in the direction of more points being scored here, James.
Yeah, and to the blow up point, like I said it to you, I've said it in Discord. I'm done factoring that in. I
Okay.
because not that I don't understand it being like a thing. Like, yeah, Portland being down two of their top players tonight is different than, let's say, Philly being down their top players, because Philly
Right.
still has a competent roster. But like they were playing Boston and they literally scored 126 points on a top three defense without Embiid and Maxey. Or like last week when Denver quite literally rested every player except Porter, who still went like 4 of 20 from the floor, and they outright beat the Clippers. And I think there was another example. I think Indiana outright beat the Heat without without Tyrese Halliburton. Like, it's the NBA at the end of the day,
Right.
and these are the best 150 players in the league, or whatever the exact number comes out to be. Math is sometimes hard. 250 players, I don't know. But if that game in Utah Dallas does stay close and the total does rise at 233, and we are getting like 240 points scored in that game, what is Luke? I mean, Luke is gonna. He played 46 minutes, right? Like nobody else in that range kind of has that. Maybe nobody on the slate other than like Philly players has that like minute ceiling. Maybe Van Vliet has that minute ceiling, but
Right.
46 minutes in a regulation game. Like you give Luca 46 minutes, he's probably going to get you 70 plus fantasy points like 9 out of every 10.
Hmm.
9 out of every 10 times. I'm not saying he's going to average 46 minutes, but just again, they're not playing tomorrow, right?
Right.
They're off tomorrow. So they have a day in between. Like we could see players getting massive minute ceilings because they don't have to look to tomorrow. They have to wait. Like Friday is the next time any of
Sure.
them play.
Sure. 100% agree with you there. Tier below, you got Curry at 99 with the returning Chris Paul in that lineup. Tyrese Maxey, $9,400. We know Philly just plays their guys no matter what. Anyway, thank God Nick Nurse is a coach in the NBA. After that, you have Cade Cunningham, who's a point guard, small forward now for Detroit at 86, coming off of some ceiling gains. Brogdon, Van Vliet, Rozier in this 8K range. Do you have a favorite of the tier B group?
I mean, Maxi obviously stands out just given the matchup. Pace, massive pace of spot, given Washington's the fastest, or second fastest team in the league. Second fastest team in the league. I
Yeah.
was right, and the second worst defense in the league. So like, dream scenario for Tyrese Maxey, who did put up 47 fantasy points against them already. Um, Probably has even higher ceiling than that, considering he only played 31 minutes in that game. And Joel Embiid went for like 100 fantasy points in that game in 30 minutes.
Right.
So Maxi is probably the guy for me in this tier. Um, yeah, it's probably Maxi and then the field. Really, Cade's kind of priced out of like I like the rostership. I do kind of like. I think Malcolm Brogdon is a little interesting if you do think that game can stay any bit competitive, given the minutes we know are just when he's healthy, it's really, really solid.
Right.
And when you look at Portland, who again, down Jeremy Grant, all but likely down
DeAndre
DeAndre
Ayton.
Ayton,
Yeah.
Malcolm Brogdon is averaging 1.5 fantasy points per minute without those guys. Like, and I know there might be the likelihood of Anthony Simons returning seems like imminent. It
Yeah.
could be today, and that's obviously going to cut into some Brogdon here because they're going to have 4 guards for 2 positions. Really, I mean, you could play Simon or you could play
They play Shaden at the 3.
Shaden
Maybe?
at the 3. You could play Shaden at the 3, and still keep Scoot, I guess, in that low 20s minutes, and that doesn't necessarily cut into Brogdon, but hard to ignore 1.5 fantasy points per minute. And I've said it like ad nauseum, like I've continued to say it. Look at every game that Malcolm Brogdon has been in.
Right.
Like people want to like shit on Portland all you can because they're not a great team. But every game with Malcolm Brogdon is competitive. I think that says a lot about Malcolm Brogdon in general.
Yeah.
About what kind of player he is. 8,500, not a comfortable price to get to, but it is comfortable if you're telling me that he has an upside of 1.5 fantasy points per minute. That's a very, very appealing number.
I agree. I mean, he's been crazy good. for a guy that's been coming back from injury, seemingly, being traded, then gets off to a great start, gets hurt again. Now he comes back and he's basically right back to full minutes. The next score to tier down as we approach some value. I know you and I go back and forth on Kobe White, but the numbers and minutes have been ridiculous. The production's been out of his mind lately. Still no Zach LaVine. Now a big pace-up spot for them at home against Charlotte. Any interest in building some lineups around Kobe White tonight?
Yeah. He's been good. I did think it was like a little fluky, and it's just proven not to be the case. The Milwaukee game goes overtime, but you look at the minutes, he played 40 minutes in regulation. Like that's no joke. Like if you're playing 40 minutes in back-to-back regulation games, like you're just on the floor. And he's taken 17 and 20 shots in those games, 43 and 55 fantasy points. It's hard not to like Kobe White. Not only not only a good pacer spot, but Charlotte's dead last in defense. So a plus matchup there too.
Agreed. Anybody else down here for some this low tier value? Again, we talked about it. With the lack of big slate NBA over these last couple of days, it feels like DraftKings had some time to figure out their pricing algorithm, not sort of being able to react to some of the recent trends here. Most of these guys haven't played since Saturday, so there's not a ton of obvious value on the slate. Did you find anything at the point guard position that you were looking at as we go under 6K? I mean, Derrick Rose is here, but he's up to $5,100 now. Aya DeSumo has been playing a lot of minutes. Sexton at 58. Ivy started again the other night at 58. Any of these guys for you?
I would say Ivy's teammate, Killian Hayes. That's probably my favorite Piston point guard. There's 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them. I don't know. There's like a million Piston point guards listed. But Hayes has re-entered the starting lineup. And look, we've said it for a few years now. Like he is not an efficient scorer. And I don't expect 76 and 54% from the floor to necessarily continue long term. But in the short term, it could. It's not like Memphis is this stalwart defensively. Their defensive player. They have the reigning defensive player of the year.
Right.
But and Desmond Bane's a good defender in his own right. But they are not. I mean, they're missing everybody. They don't know what they're doing at the center minutes now that Xavier Tillman's back. Who knows what they're doing at point guard on a night-to-night basis? Is it Rose? Is it Noel? Vince Williams is playing big minutes. David Roddy's playing big minutes. Like their rotation is a mess. And Killian Hayes has stepped back into this Detroit rotation, and he's been really, really good. 30 and 37 fantasy points at 5,400 would crush value in both instances. Peripherally, he's been really good. It's really the fantasy production probably will be contingent upon the shooting, right? Like, if the shots fall, which it's really up in the air if they do, then he probably doesn't have a great night. But if they do, we just saw almost 40 fantasy point upside, and at 5,400, I am definitely willing to take a chance on that.
I agree with you. Again, and he's been a good facilitator. He's given some good defensive stats. It just, does he go 10 for 13 or 6 of 11?
Yeah, it's tough.
That's kind of where we're at. I'm with you. There's not a ton of other value at the point guard position that I kind of have completely keyed in on, especially with these guys back for Dallas. You can test your luck with the Jalen Noel experience if you feel so inclined to, but there's not a ton else here. At the shooting guard position, Kyrie and Donovan Mitchell are up top, but I found myself gravitating more towards Anthony Edwards, if active, Desmond Bane, Paul George, and DeJounte Murray as the 4 top spends for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just looking at our ownership, which has been updated over at FantasyAlarm.com, and the discrepancy between Kyrie's ownership on DraftKings versus FanDuel, where he's 8,100 on FanDuel and he's the highest rostered guard over there. Okay. Not going to touch the $9,400 price tag. Like that's kind of crazy on DraftKings. I know the matchup is ideal, and he could obviously have a monster night, but 9,400 is crazy. Mitchell, tough spot. We know he has a ceiling if you wanted to go there, but targeting Orlando has not really been that fun for anybody. So I agree. I would live in that next range. I think probably the edge for me of the grouping would go Edwards Bane. Edwards has the best matchup on the board of the 4. Edwards, massive pace up spot. Spurs are 4th in pace, and they're the 4th worst defense in the league. So like, if Edwards were not limited at all, I feel like that would be the number 1 spot I'd go. Love what Desmond Bane has brought to the table over the last couple of games. Was in massive foul trouble last game. Still had 45 fantasy points, 27, 5, 3, a block, and 2 steals. Like, he's really, really, as long as they're not getting blown out, like
Right.
he's really been super solid. 45 essentially plus fantasy points in 3 straight games, which is right on the line with his salary. And there's obviously upside for more. They blew Dallas out. There was a minute window where he could have seen 36, 37. He clearly goes over 50 fantasy points in that instance. And then Phoenix, he's in foul trouble. What if he plays 35, 36 minutes?
Right.
He goes for another 50. So still ceiling at 8,900. Paul George, we know, is very solid. And DeJounte, we talked about it on the show. The peripheral stats are weird. Super weird.
Get 3 straight games of over 40 fantasy points with 10, 5, 8, 6, 3, 5. And then he goes back-to-back 40 points where he's just scoring.
Yeah.
2 and 3, 3 and 2. The 5 steals were nice. 4 steals here. So definitely need the peripheral stats. But like you mentioned, this is a 2-point spread, 241 total. Certainly can get DeJounte going here. At the
I think that's up. I think it's up to like 240, 243, 244.
242 and a half is what Covers has.
Oh, yeah.
So it could be higher elsewhere, other books. But still, only a 3-point spread in that one.
Yeah.
Cam Thomas, cover of the playbook and cover of today's show. Played 38 minutes against Orlando, so minutes limit's gone. He shot 7 of 23, which is well below his season average, and still gave you 37 fantasy points. The dude's a bucket, right? He's got a 45-pointer actual. He opened the season 36, 30, and 33 actual point games here. Now you're talking about a pace-up spot. And what are we talking about this year? If you're facing Atlanta or you're facing the Pacers, you basically just boost everybody's ceiling, right? So if we have a guy here that is already has an elite ceiling, shouldn't Cam Thomas be one of the more popular plays on tonight's slate?
Yeah, and he's not. I think what it comes down to is probably people not knowing if they're going to go back to Finney Smith in the starting lineup and they move Cam Thomas back to the bench. Like, I think that's obviously like kind of the elephant in the room with Cam Thomas. That's a 7 o'clock, 7:30. I don't even know the starting lineup before lock. Like, if I'm Brooklyn, I'm probably keeping Cam Thomas in the starting lineup, but it's obviously a little different, I would say, of like a minute ceiling. 38 minutes if he's coming off the bench is probably not where he sits. It'd probably be like low 30s, which I'm not saying is a bad. I mean, look.
The man scored 26 and 25 minutes.
Yeah. Opening night, the 3-stretch game you alluded to, he scored 36 in 25 minutes. So I'm not saying
it doesn't matter if he plays 25 or 35. He's taking 20-plus shots. So it's more so does he get closer to 30 shots the more minutes he plays. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I think if this game gets into a track meet, I think they're going to have to put him on the floor just to keep up with Trey, right? Like, if Trey Young's just going down and popping buckets for 3 quarters, they're going to need Cam Thomas coming down the floor to do the same. So, again, I'm very high on him for that reason here today. The rest of the mid-tier is kind of like okay. Jalen Green against OKC, 72. Cole Anthony's got a price up at 68. Clay's shooting well against Portland. Vassell, we know, is coming off the bench. Bojan is up to $6,200. Like, didn't love a much more of this mid-tier range. I don't know if there's a guy for you that you liked more than the others.
Not really. We just got word Jordan Poole.
Was Jordan Poole on the injury report today?
He's been on the injury report. He's been questionable all day. They just ruled Landry Shamet out. But of course we get the Poole game time decision. So
am I just missing here?
He is 69. Nice.
69 is he shooting guard only?
He's shooting guard only. Yep.
Okay, that's why I was missing him. Okay. Koulibaly, I guess, right? Or something like that. If he gets ruled out, is Shamet's already out?
Yeah, I mean, Koulibaly probably absorbs a lot of that Shamet run to begin with.
Yeah.
That would be my guess, at least. But Koulibaly probably starts in that case.
I guess they would probably start Kispert at the 2.
Yeah, it's Kispert or Koulibaly. I would say both in line for pretty big fantasy bumps in terms of fantasy per minute. Let's take Jordan Poole off the floor. If Jordan Poole were to be ruled out, which again, we don't have word, he is officially a game time decision as of a minute ago. As this loads, this show is brought to you by Fantasy Alarm and the Better Sports Network.
Hey.
All right, so we have Bilal Coulibaly, 0.78 fantasy points per minute on DraftKings, and Corey Kispert, 0.68. So
Okay. Slight increase.
Not the best fantasy production there, but I just assume cheap starters that approach 30 minutes would be pretty popular.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for the playbook updates for that one once we get the official news. That game is a 7:00 game, so we will know the answers to the.
This did happen once before with Washington.
Sure, but that was like a random.
Pre-game warm up. Yeah.
Was there any other shooting guards that we were looking at here?
Yeah, and Pretty Simon's 55.
True. We don't know yet if he's in, but that's a great price tag. Him and Bojan, right? Obviously.
Yeah, him and Bojan.
$5,100. We know Bojan's playing.
Yeah. Yep.
So not the right position for him. He's not a shooting guard, but when they do eventually adjust him to small forward and power forward at some point, then the $5,100 still really good. Guy came off right away, played 27 minutes out of the gate, scored 22 actuals. So great potential for him. I mean, I know he gave you 2 and 2, but he gave you a little bit more than that last year. So even if he, chimes in a little bit with some extra peripheral stats, there's some good upside there. And then, if Simon plays, I mean, it's a thumb injury. I mean, I don't know what the expectation would be here, but
I don't think there'd be a limit with a thumb.
I would largely agree with you. The conditioning should be fine. So we know elite scoring, right? He's going to have to share with Brogdon and whatnot, but definitely an elite scorer. So for some good value. Again, I think Caruso and Ayo are fine here. I like Norm at 5K and what could be a competitive game against Denver. Isaiah Joe, I've talked a lot about, just comes off the bench, has a good role with them, plays that 25 or so minutes. If he hits his threes, great. If he doesn't, well, then you're going to have a low floor. But I like the fact that he's giving you a couple of rebounds, couple of assists. He had a random 3-block game and a random 3-steal game. So he's at least chipping in a bit to where, he doesn't have to go 6 for 6 to be valuable. He's giving you a little bit of something there. So I don't mind him at 45. And then we just mentioned Coulibaly here at 43. Any other values for you?
Isaiah Joe, by the way, doesn't miss a lot. 46% from
No, 3. He doesn't miss a lot. No.
46% from 3 is pretty crazy.
Agreed. Anybody else?
No.
Okay. Small forward. Buckets at 95. Your top price play. Are you paying up for the Heat forward tonight with no Bam?
You can. It's fine. I mean, he didn't do anything until basically the fourth quarter of the Indiana game, the second Indiana game, and it was too late. Obviously, there's rebound upside. There's scoring upside, apparently 33, 36 points in the last 2 games. So, 9,500 is probably a little. I'm a little uncomfortable again tonight.
Okay.
But, if you get there, it's not the worst.
Sure. I mean, we just know the upside can be 54 and 46 the last couple games.
Yeah.
Granted, against the Pacers both games here. So we do talk that is a ceiling booster for you in those matchups. Scotty Barnes, Mikal Bridges dealing with kind of a fully healthy team there. Talk Paul George, DeRozan's 8K. I do like a lot of DeMar DeRozan at the 8K price tonight with no Levine.
Yeah, Bridges, DeRozan would probably be the 2 guys I would look at in this tier. Bridges, we've now seen 40-plus actual upside twice in his last 6 games. Once came against Atlanta where he scored 45. His last game out against the really tough Orlando defense, 27 actual in the first quarter. So we know there's a monster ceiling. We saw this last year. We saw oh, wait, this guy took some pointers from Kevin Durant last year after Devin Booker over the last couple of years offensively. So if you want to get to Bridges, by all means do so. DeRozan, obviously you save $600 going to great spot. I do think like you pointed this out pretty early in the year about the DeRozan threes. Not that it matters all that much, but he's making a couple. That's gonna give you a little higher ceiling
I
on
mean, he
DraftKings
never took
too.
them before, right?
Yeah.
Now he's taken 7 or sorry, taken 11 over the last 3.
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge development in the DeMar
Yep.
DeRozan skill set there. And if he's going to start hitting them, I mean,
Yep.
that's even better, right? Like just adds more to the upside there. So yeah, I get the fact that there's no Levine, taste of spot against Charlotte. I like DeRozan here at $8,000 for sure. Franz, always a guy. Again, you and I, we don't feel like we get them right ever, but some people play him, and when they do, he goes off. So if you want to play Franz at 79 against Cleveland, you certainly can. Keldon, I like at 73 here tonight. Again, I like Wemby and Keldon for San Antonio this evening. Anybody else for you in the mid tier?
Not like in much in the 6K range. Like you could always play like Clay and hopes for tournament ceiling. You can play Jalen Williams, who's pretty solid. Strus is fine. Bogdanovich is probably like price at the max you would be comfortable with getting to 6,200. I don't know if that's like the best. Same with Jaquez, 6,100. It doesn't feel like I know how good he's been, but he's also been largely in that like 30 fantasy point range.
The minutes are going to be the interesting one, right? Because you mentioned the last game, Caleb Martin played 36 minutes,
Yeah,
and Jaquez and all these guys played a bunch of minutes. That came at the expense of Josh Richardson, right? He
yep.
left that game with an injury, and there was no Bam. Do we have the Richardson? Richardson is
Richardson's
in
in.
today,
Yeah, he's fully
so
in. Yep.
hard to really know where we're going to
Yep.
go when it comes to that value here. Faisal asked about Caruso. I like him. If he's in the starting lineup tonight, I'm down again. No Levine. Kobe White's been really good. DeRozan we know is going to carry that team, but it's a pace up spot for Charlotte. So if Caruso can get in there and play some defense tonight and get some stats and score, like totally on board with him at that 5K range. And I think the Bulls in general have some value with AO and Caruso and Patrick Williams in that group here tonight, just sort of given the game environment that they're in.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to get there, but I understand it.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we going Kelly Oubre at $5,800? Return game for him?
I don't know. Nick Nurse usually does his like pregame media presser. We'll see like what he says about Oubre and like if there's a cap on the minutes. Like I don't know.
Does Nick Nurse cap players? If you're cleared and in the
As-
lineup, don't you just play?
Sure, that's a fair point. I also don't know if Nick Nurse has dealt with anybody being hit by a car before. Like that might be something new for Nick Nurse. Well, I guess this is.
How are we even sure they got hit by a car?
No, we're not. We are actually not. He might have ran into a car. He might have done something that, we don't know.
Maybe he did something embarrassing and like fell off his bike while trying to like Instagram live and know.
That could have been true.
Yeah.
Like if in this range, you know where I'm going. I'm going to DeAndre Hunter. I would go 5,700 DeAndre Hunter probably as one of my favorite plays in this price range. I think he's been incredibly solid outside of some kind of crappy luck. Like the Milwaukee game, he stunk. They lost, whatever. Spurs game, massive foul trouble, still was over a fantasy points per minute. The Cleveland game, they get absolutely torched in fantasy point per minute. And then the 3 games prior, scores 20 actual in all 3. There's no Jalen Johnson. He's playing big minutes. He's averaging nearly a fantasy point per minute without Jalen Johnson on the floor. Like I have really come around on like a guy that you always played, and it was always like lower 5K. And I was just like, oh, there's so much fluff and so much stuff in the middle of this. Like there's too much going on in this rotation. And now there's not because they're basically playing 7 guys. So I am definitely interested in DeAndre Hunter. He played 40 minutes against Boston in regulation. Like there's a 40-minute ceiling for DeAndre Hunter too, especially knowing that no one's playing tomorrow. So 5,700 DeAndre Hunter is probably the place I'd go in this like 5K range.
We got some minor news. Isaac not playing tonight for Orlando.
Yep.
We talked about how those minutes had gone somewhat to other guys in that front court when he's not there. But lately, he just hasn't played enough, right?
Yeah.
On the to even have too much of an impact there. So, Pat Will, yeah, I like Pat Will. Again, I think a lot of the Chicago value here is going to be in play for me. When I say value, like there's 3 guys that are in that 5K range tonight: Williams, Ao, and Caruso. So if they're in the starting lineup tonight with no Levine, then I'm fine getting there because Charlotte generally has teams play to their, another team that generally has teams play to their ceiling totals in terms of scoring, up pace game. So I don't mind it. And I think is Chicago even a favorite in this game? Yeah. Somehow Chicago's a 5-point favorite too. Like that just speaks to, how bad Charlotte is. So because we know the Bulls are bad. So
we do.
If Chicago goes out there and scores 120 tonight, I probably wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the case here. So yeah, I'm fine on Patrick Williams. He's like a Herb Jones light, like gives you defense. If he scores on the right night, he can go for 30 plus, like he did the other day. So yeah, all of that's fine for me. Any other small forward value? You talk about Vince Williams a few times. He's down here at $4,200.
Yeah, Kelly Oubre
off the bench, by the way. So
which has been his normal. That's been the normal MO. He's been coming off the bench, so like that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I guess hopefully following that is a update with like
he wasn't starting earlier this year.
No, he was coming off the bench and then he was starting after what happened to that team? They traded Harden.
Yeah.
And they traded PJ Tucker. He was starting once they traded PJ Tucker. So it was
now
like
Batum is the Tucker guy.
And now I guess Batum is the Tucker. Yeah. So like
but Oubre was still playing.
Still definitely
minutes,
playing.
So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not like I'm not against playing.
Oh, I know. I'm just talking through the whole rotation there.
Yeah.
Caleb Martin, listen, Justin, we just mentioned that he got that run with Richardson getting hurt in that game, and they had no Bam, so the rotation was a bit skewed. Richardson's back, so I mean, if you want to take a stab at Caleb Martin here tonight, I think you can, but the price is up on him, and we're not sure how many minutes him, Jaquez, D-Raw, like that. I think Duncan Robinson's probably secure, but I don't know about the rest of that wing rotation there and how those minutes will play. They mentioned Vince Williams. He's up here on the screen. You called him out when he played 20 minutes after Utah, basically. Then he played 26 and 30 now in back-to-back games. So in the rotation, they're kind of desperate for some potential there. He is shooting a little bit. He's giving you some defensive and rebounding stats. So definitely a guy, I think, at $4,200 that most people were probably looking at before all the news in Portland came out. I don't know if you still find him as a viable value on tonight's slate or not, knowing that you can play Jabari and Reith for cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, nobody is getting to Vince Williams tonight.
Right.
So you're going to definitely make a decision on, if he doesn't give you the 26 to 30 minutes, you're probably in trouble because you and one other of your best friends are going to be playing Vince Williams tonight. And I specifically mean you because I know you're going to play Vince Williams tonight.
The thing is, like, now if like Kispert starts, I might just play Kispert, right? Like.
Yep. And Kispert's, Koulibaly, when you go over to fantasyalarm.com and you look at our NBA DFS roster sit percentage, Koulibaly this is pre actually having any substantial injury update, is the 5th highest rostered small forward on DraftKings.
Sure.
Kispert is already getting 6% rostership before Landry Shamet was rolled out, before Jordan Poole even. I mean, he's just been questionable all day. So
right.
The field is ready. That just shows you the field is ready to just Corey Kispert, 4,100, I'm playing him. Bilal Koulibaly, 4,300, I'm playing him. They're both shooting guards. Well, Kispert's small forward, power forward for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Koulibaly, shooting guard, small forward, a little better eligibility. But yeah, I mean, if you think Williams continues to be in the rotation, I mean, I don't see why not. Just looking at the popcorn machine here, John, against Phoenix in a game, that existed with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and all the regular Phoenix guys, Vince Williams had 3 shifts in the 4th quarter. And now that's not the best because that means he was taken off the floor a lot, but played the first 240 of the first 220 of the fourth, came back in, played 4 more minutes. All he did in that fourth quarter was pick up 3 fouls, and then he
Right.
played again near the end of the game. He picked up 4 fouls in the fourth quarter. I don't know how many fouls he finished with, but he had 4 of them in the fourth. He fouled out. So he would have closed. He probably would have
Right.
approached. I mean, he fouled out with. Oh, never mind. He fouled out 19 seconds left. So he did close. But 30 minutes, he basically closed the game. So if you want to get to a $4,200 guy that Memphis is going to more and more, who's not free anymore, like he was, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, honest question though. If the Washington guys are ruled out, Jordan Poole, right?
Yeah.
What is the difference between a kind of a low floor Corey Kispert at whatever ownership it's going to be versus a low floor Vince Williams who is probably going to be 1/50th the ownership, right?
Kispert, at least we know, will shoot more, right?
Right. Right. Well, cool.
You'll just get the other stats from Vince Williams there.
I guess that's the versus, right? That's the X versus Z. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you want the guy who's gonna potentially approach a double double, or the guy who could potentially? I mean, I know Kispert had the 20-point half, right? He had the
Right.
20-point half earlier in the year, but like, it's not like his fantasy per minute output with these guys off the floor is great. So I'm just asking, like, as a tournament player, when you're looking at Corey Kispert potentially being chalk, like that is a like. I don't know if I want to play Corey Kispert as a chalk play. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's move on over to the power forward position here. We mentioned Butler already. Towns 93, Wemby 9K. I put Wemby in the playbook here as a core play. We talk about it all the time. I mean, the talent alone has me FOMOing this kid every single night. When he is on the slate and you see him with 10 plus blocks and steals, 9 plus blocks and steals, that appeal, 6 plus blocks and steals, double doubles, 20 plus, and he's not even playing 30 plus minutes all the time in these games as well. I just find myself gravitating towards him, especially when he's only $9,000 on DraftKings. You only need 45 fantasy points for him to get you the 5x return. He's basically giving you that over his last handful of games while playing less than 30 minutes as it is. And he had this matchup already. He played 35 minutes in that game, went for 56 fantasy points, 25, 9, 4, 5 plus blocks and steals. The one thing we talked about here is that the injury issue, or not the injury, the foul potential. He had 5 fouls in that game with Karl Anthony Towns. We know Towns is going to be a guy that gets the ball a lot in this one, so you have to worry maybe of some foul trouble here, but still, just the appeal of the blocks and steals and the scoring and the allure of Victor Wembanyama in your lineup. There's an 80 fantasy point game lurking in here somewhere. Is this necessarily the matchup for it to come out? Probably not, but still, at 9K, the price tag for me is only going to feel like it's going to go up from here. I do have some exposure to him in lineups tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. Spurs have been bad on the road, but it's like, okay, they're bad on the road, but like, he's pretty good. So, yeah, I could see myself getting some Wemby at 9K. It's obviously a tournament only play, but I'm definitely down with some Wemby.
Yeah, 100%. Agree with you there. Any other top end power forwards for you tonight?
Top end power forwards. I mean, Kuzma's interesting if you think Washington can play a competitive game. He has a very, very high ceiling. And if you are playing Embiid because there's value that you can safely get to Embiid, or if you are playing Maxey, the only reason Washington would keep this game competitive is because we get the 32, 12, and 8 out of Kuzma that he put up in Detroit. Like, it's not this isn't coming from like Jordan. Right. We know Jordan Poole at this current state isn't the one keeping them competitive. So if you want to play a max price Kuzma, like, it's fine. I think Banchero is kind of in that same fold where he has the down game against Washington where we find out he has like a little bum ankle. Then he responds with 56 and 46. And we talked about on the pod last night, like the assists have been great for Paolo. And he's a great rebounder and he's a great scorer. And if you're going to also get assists, he is really, really good producer. It's just,
I mean, number one pick in the draft, right? I mean,
number one pick in the draft. Yep.
We're seeing the year 2 development. Hopefully, we thought we saw this. We see these things come in spurts, right? Where it's like, all right, complete player, here he goes, ready to take off, ready to ascend to the next level, and then he gives you like 3 straight down games. You're like, what happened? Where did everything we just see go, right? So I'm hopeful that this is again another launch point for Paolo. Because 83 is a too cheap for price tag. It is a little bit of a tougher spot for him there going up against Cleveland. One thing we didn't talk about, Karis LeVert is out. What does that do for the rotation for the Cavs here tonight?
Okoro.
Okay.
Played 33 minutes, I believe, was the official.
Yep.
He played a lot for Cleveland. Like, we know that game is the 4 steals. Like this is the epitome of an Isaac Okoro stealing game right here. That it's just impossible to like assume it's going to happen again. Because he just doesn't shoot 7 shots. I mean, this is like Vince Williams, basically, right? Like you're basically playing, like you're picking between Okoro and Vince Williams, and you're picking between Kispert and Koulibaly, and it's all like, which guy actually just has a higher ceiling. So he's interesting-ish.
Yeah, I mean, the minutes there for a value play, right? If you're looking for a guy that could low floor, we know, but defense, rebounding, the whole deal there. Boncaro, Kawhi is obviously coming off some good games here. Had a good game against Denver. Triple J had a ceiling game recently. He's got Detroit. Mobley in a top spot against Orlando. Where are we looking at in the next tier below?
I don't know. This next tier is like Kawhi is good. Jackson getting a little ownership. John's a little scary. Jaren Jackson Jr. ownership is always scary.
Popping off of a 37 actual point game against Phoenix,
dude. I mean,
can never predict when this kid is going to go off.
Dude, he's so good, and it's so frustrating because I'm not going to say I didn't play him in Dallas. I'm also not going to say I did play him in Dallas. I definitely played him against Dallas, where it's like
5 fouls, 14
dude,
minutes.
In 14 minutes. Like, what? It's crazy. So if you want to get to Jaren Jackson, good luck guessing correctly there. You already mentioned Keldon. Toby's way too highly priced. I saw you had John Collins in the playbook. I want to ask you about John Collins because I think Utah, and it's something that I've alluded to, and maybe we're just finally like, they're just okay playing their guys because they knew there was a break in between when they were going to play and that last game, and now there's another break until Friday. Like, do you think Utah just full body, like just full scale plays like their guys minutes again like they did?
Well, I mean, I think that he was at least more secure in minutes than anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, he was the one like 30. Approaching 30. Yeah.
Yeah, so I liked it for that aspect of it. Again, I think the shot attempts are fine. I look at the Dallas front court, not really where their strong suit is, on either side of the floor here. So, it could be a spot where no Markin and no Clarkson again, if he's on the floor for 30 plus minutes, that they could have some decent rebounding, could have him with some blocks, could have him with some scoring. $7,200 is certainly a ceiling price tag for a guy that really hasn't approached enough production to warrant that. But you look at the guys that are off the floor, and also just sort of the pricing on a lot of these guys, right? Like they've priced a lot of these guys up. I don't find matchups. Cam Johnson 65, Sandy 66, Aaron Gordon to 71. We don't know if he'll be back. Gordon Hayward 64. Like these guys aren't all necessarily priced at a value either. So I kind of like Collins as a guy that could just see a boost because no one else is there.
Yeah. And like it is just kind of a good spot. Like Dallas is largely bad defensively. They're 11-8. They were started off of the season really good. They're now 11-8. 117.3 is their defensive rating. That's the 6th worst in the league. And they're also 9th in pace. So everything really lines up to target against Dallas. So, yeah, I John Collins. Probably this is the max I would pay for him, but I'm okay getting there.
Yeah, 100% agree. Value power forwards, again, I didn't really find much in this like 5K range. We did talk Pat Will already. That's because the entire world is getting to Jabari Parker here tonight.
Parker.
Not Jabari Parker. Jabari Walker. Not Jabari
I'm happy you didn't try to say that you didn't say Jabari Parker there, because
you stopped me, but that's fine. I actually typed in Jabari Parker. I actually did. I can't even find him anyway. I actually typed in Jabari Parker when I was doing the playbook today first. Jabari Walker. Back-to-back games of 24 minutes. Now there's no Jeremy Grant. Again, a lot of people getting to him because there's not a lot of value here tonight anyways. So, is it the perfect spot? No, but if he's going to play the 30 minutes, I mean, we got the ceiling game against Utah. If he's giving you some productive games in 20 minutes, so you add on another 10, you just assume the numbers will be there for him.
I just can't get past like your name drops, like Austin Rivers, Jabari Parker. Like you got some good ones up there.
Jabari Parker played like 2 years ago. That's okay.
Jabari Parker, I was sure he was going to be a stud. I was sure. I was like, Jabari
Parker ACL twice. I mean, what was he supposed to do?
It's true. He also wore a Duke uniform, and I was like, oh, everyone that goes to Duke is going to be great. So, yeah, Jabari Walker, on the other hand, like, I could see a scenario where even if this game is out of hand, he's just playing. Now, he has to stay out of foul trouble. He can get in foul trouble at times, and that's, like, a little scary. Do you assume, like, the assumption is... Now, I guess the Anthony Simons thing is the question mark, because does he start if Anthony Simons is back? I don't know, because they could just go
Kamara
at the 4, and then you play Reith at the 5, right? Or conversely, you play Jabari at the 5. Like one of those.
Even if they played Kamara to start at the 5, though, I still think Walker gets a bump.
Kamara at the 4, and then
the 4 rather,
yeah, probably. And Kamara might get in foul trouble as well, right? So
Walker was a generational talent.
He was, for sure. Much like most Duke number 1 options are, like it's just what they become.
Would you play Kamara here? He does nothing. Like
he was a 4-year college player that he's just
like they give him 30 minutes already and he barely does anything with it. So
yeah, I'm not getting to Kamara. I mean, look, if I'm playing one of them, I'd rather just take the shot on Jabari Walker for upside. Yeah. That would just be
the slate is tough. I agree with you. There's no value. It's Duop Reith.
It's Portland.
And it's Jabari Parker Walker, right? So it's
Jabari Parker. Anthony Edwards in.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards in. That's fine. I like him at the 9K price tag. I also like Georges Niang. I mentioned the Levert thing, not to talk necessarily about Okoro. If I get an opportunity to talk about Georges Niang, I'll talk about Georges Niang here. He's a shooter. He's 4K, right? 22 minutes, took 8 shots. If he hit another 3, I like that the rebounds have kind of been there. We all had the hero game that I played him against Atlanta, where he actually played the least amount of minutes. He was like playing for a stretch there. So, if he gets hot, like they'd probably consider playing him over Okoro there for a little bit. So, no minutes limit for Ant Edwards here either. So, Utah isn't the king value. They're all like 5K guys.
I know there is no value.
You playing Colin Sexton tonight?
Nah, Sean's out here playing
to 57. I mean, where's your value?
Taylor Hendricks at 3,500.
Yeah, Chris Dunn the value tonight. 20 minutes. I mean, like
20 minutes, but 20 minutes before his personal reason, before he hasn't played the last 3 games. So
maybe we'll get a Del Curry reference. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, technically, every time we mention Steph, we are, because his name is Wardell Curry, right? It's Wardell Stephen Curry. So like, we are mentioning him. So you know what?
They will likely outscore Niang. Yeah, but Niang's $1,500 cheaper. So sure, I'm not even arguing that point. I'm just saying he's a 4K guy that's been going for 20 plus fantasy points. If you want to spend $5,700 on Fed Tecchio, by all means, go for it. I gotta sit here and argue with you. But who am I talking to? You're the king of the underdog over here. So shout out Sean, just absolutely hammering these battle royals lately. And you know what? I think he tweeted out that lineup too yesterday with Josh Hart. He's like, I like this one. I was like, I kind of like that one too, and I just kind of went on my way. And then he's taking down tournaments with it.
So did Sean. He woke up, made his coffee, and was just scrolling through his phone like, oh, look at that, honey. Oh, look.
Grande once told me to just play good players.
I did, and I don't do that anymore.
that was probably after your son's mid-price guard fiasco 10 years ago.
That was true. Shout out.
What was his name? I forget.
He's a French guy.
Moutier?
No, he did play. He played Moutier over Elia Kobo.
Yeah.
Look at that pull.
Yeah,
brain.
Kobo.
Brain right there.
Could have just played the chalk that day. Probably would have been a lot richer, but I came in dead last instead. It's all right. People don't forget. Center spot. Joker and Embiid here. 12-5, 11-6.
Sean's gonna call HR. Sean's calling HR.
That's fine. I'll pick up. Jokic or Embiid here. 12-5, 11-6. Play whatever you want. Joker obviously coming off 85. Embiid went for 75 against his team earlier this year. So yeah, sure. But if you want the discount on Embiid, go for it. If you want to spend up for Jokic because there's no good matchup against the Clippers, everybody's in. Like totally fine going there as well. I think it was IC3U said he's gonna have a lot of Şengün tonight. I like Şengün.
Yep. Yeah, I mean
8 of 25 shooting against Lakers, it gives you 55 still. So
I was watching that game and the broadcast was talking about it, and they were like, "Man, he shoots a lot, and nothing's really falling." And then you look and you're like, "Oh, but yeah, he wasn't making shots, but 13 rebounds, 5 assists.
Are taking 25 shots.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's not many. So
and that was to be fair, that was in the ceiling shot attempts he's taken this year. He's only taken more than 20 twice this year, but
18 and 19 the 2 games before that though.
Yeah, 18 and 19, right. And one of them was he only played 28 minutes in the second leg of a back-to-back. So yeah,
there aren't many centers that have that kind of shot volume. So getting him at under 9K here against the Thunder, I definitely like. Vooch against Charlotte. A lot of people in the prop community are in on Vooch here today. He hasn't been very good outside of face Milwaukee and just went nutty.
Right. Makes
53 actual, but under 10 fantasy points in under 10 actual points rather in 4 of the last 5. But I see a lot of people liking his over 16.5 point total today. So is that based off our old perception of Charlotte versus our new perception of Charlotte, or what's your thoughts on Vooch here?
I mean, I think it's based on you take Zach LaVine off the floor and naturally there's more offense to be had. It also has to do with the pace-up spot against Charlotte. It could also do with the fact that Mark Williams may not play in this game, and you may get some variation of PJ Washington and Nick Richards and JT Thor being your stoppers here. Mm-hmm. And we know JT Thor not exactly bringing the hammer,
No.
But it's fine. I think the prior, how would you rank the Bulls? And we could just rank the 3, just Kobe White, DeRozan, Vooch.
Based off value or based off how I want to roster them?
How you want to roster them, because I think of I think DeRozan was the first Bull I plugged in. Okay. Kobe White is the best price, obviously, if you need salary. Yeah. And then Vooch, because he's not exactly cheap. He is 8,400. You said it. He's had one good game and his price has gone up.
Yeah. And I got the Kobe White, obviously, my lineups over DeRozan just because of the pricing. I felt like if I was going to spend 8K, there was other matchups that I would spend 8K on than the Chicago-Charlotte game. So I probably have White, DeRozan, Vooch, but I also think that DeRozan and Vooch are probably in similar ceiling spots. It's just that you're also spending more money on Vooch than you are DeRozan tonight. So the Mark Williams thing is interesting because if he does end up being ruled out, the PJ Washington stretch the floor spot,
Yep.
is a pretty interesting one here against Chicago at $5,400. And then we've been waiting for Nick Richards. I mean, we were all in to play him, and then he had that concussion. He came back. He played just like 9 minutes, I think they said, in his return game.
He's just like not in there. Yeah, he just like didn't play.
So like I don't know, with Bridges back and with that whole rotation, like if they have a need necessarily because they're using Washington as the 5. But you have to assume that if Williams is out, Richards has to see more minutes.
Backup. I mean, he just plugs back into the backup.
Yeah. Yep. Or they start him and they keep Washington in that 6-man role, which you see teams do fairly often as well. Say Richards starts tonight. Would you rather Richards or Duop-Breath?
Duop-Breath.
Okay.
I think either scenario, PJ Washington is the play. Like I told you on last night's stream, I think you and I kind of either didn't notice the Williams status or he wasn't injured at the time.
Yeah.
I said it on the stream. I was like 5,400 for PJ Washington. He's playing like 30 minutes a night and has been really consistent off the bench. I would probably lean like Washington as the play, whether he started or didn't start in that scenario. But I'm trying to. I am looking up with Mark Williams off the floor if we have any substantial. Because actually, it's not only Mark Williams; it's LaMelo Ball too. We're talking about their best rebounder, their best passer, their best scorer in PJ Washington 0.94 fantasy points per minute, and Nick Richards. You'll like this, John.
Okay.
As a Nick Richards truther, 1.23 fantasy points per minute with both Mark Williams and LaMelo Ball off the floor this year. So if Nick Richards were to enter the starting lineup, that would obviously be a little interesting. We don't know the status, and we won't know the status because this game is an 8:00 tip. I assume Steve Clifford's going to be hush hush on the starting lineup or at least the status. But it is worth mentioning Nick Richards' really good fantasy point output with those two guys off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, again, we saw him some big games in just 20 minutes this year. So. Thoughts on Cam Johnson? Yeah, listen, I don't mind it. It's just another guy they priced up. He's $6,500 now. So, gonna take 8 threes and maybe more against Atlanta here tonight. If he gets you a couple of boards and knocks down some shots, the ceiling is definitely going to be there. I won't argue against getting anybody on Brooklyn tonight. Truthfully, we're in on Cam Thomas rather. He's the cover of the playbook, cover of the stream today. So I got some action in on him, whether he's starting or not. I think he's going to play enough to take 20-plus shots. So just kind of where I'm at with the Brooklyn side of this game. Any other centers for you before we get to Duop-Breath? Are you playing Orlando? Does Orlando Robinson become appealing still, or do you just take the 60% chalk and go play Reith here tonight?
I mean, you could definitely play Reith. Obviously, he's $3,200. He's going to play regardless, like whether he's starting or not. He's going to be the backup.
Good?
He is. He can stretch the floor.
Right.
He can shoot threes. So there's that.
27-year-old rookie.
Yeah, he has like an interesting background, interesting story behind him, and like it's a good story. But like, he's 3,200. It depends on what you want to do. If you're fair and balanced, you don't need to go to Duop-Breath. If he's starting, I mean, you're not going to know, right? And actually, JLP just brought up the guy I wanted to talk about. It's Clint Capella, who, like, we've seen Atlanta. We know Atlanta just doesn't. Like, Quinn Snyder shrunk the rotation. He's playing, like, 7 guys, 8 if you want to, like, combine Wesley Matthews and Garrison Matthews, like, to play enough minutes. Like, those 2 guys make 1 player. But Capella played 30 minutes in that Milwaukee game. He played alongside Ngankwu. And in the Brooklyn game, Capella played 27 minutes, 40 fantasy points in that game. There's just a massive ceiling when he approaches 40 minutes or 30 minutes. We don't know when that's going to be. And 30 minutes is the absolute ceiling. We're not going to get anything greater than that. But I like the they've elected to use Ngankwu and Capella on the floor together at times because that just shores up the fact that Capella is going to get more than 22 minutes or 21 minutes. Now, do I think that happens in this spot? Probably not, because Brooklyn runs a lot of those, like Finney Smith, Royce O'Neal, Cam Johnson at the 4 lineups, and sometimes even at the 5. But I'm super encouraged by the Capella minutes the first time they met up playing 27. Super encouraged by the 30 minutes in Milwaukee. And both those games, he ends with 40 fantasy points. I mean, look at every game that Clint Capella has been extended in. He's put up massive numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Is this one? Tune in next time to find out if Clint Capella plays 30. But in a tournament, honestly, it's a spot in the best game environment on the board that I'd be willing to take a shot on.
All right. You want to build a lineup?
Yep.
We plugging Reith in here?
Yeah, we can get different elsewhere.
Probably have to play Walker, power forward.
Yeah.
Double up the value so we can spend up somewhere.
Yeah.
Trae Young?
I suppose.
Trae Young?
Yeah.
Shooting guard.
Cam Thomas.
Small forward.
I see through Claxton as well. On the flip side of that matchup, same thing. There's a ceiling.
You had DeRozan first.
We did.
6K. Let's see. We had a value guard down here, though, that I didn't mind playing.
Well, you're going to play the Washington guys. Depending on the Jordan Poole.
I guess we just play Koulibaly anyways, right? Because he was kind of getting the thing anyways. How much Derrick Rose tonight, Sean wants to know?
0. No, I do think Derrick Rose is going to probably be the large end of that split, considering there was a back-to-back the last time they played. But it's not a terrible spot. It's a good spot, but 5,100 is a little uncomfortable.
7K util. Let's see. Got Kobe White. Staring me in the face.
Yep.
There's just an example lineup out there. Got a couple of Chicago guys in pace up spots against Charlotte as favorites. Trae Young, Cam Thomas battling back and forth. Brooklyn, Atlanta. We also have DeAndre Hunter in Atlanta. Dua Breath, Jabari Walker for the value plays there. Koulibaly, we're just kind of riding some ownership there. As well. Just an example lineup for everybody there. Of course, if you want to build a little bit more of a stars and scrubs lineup, you certainly can. If you want to go more fair and balanced, you can do that as well. Yeah, Bojan for sure, Penny. Sean there can certainly find himself in a lineup tonight. If you want to pivot down from Koulibaly, see Bojan and probably Caruso would probably be the build there. 62. We got a little bit more money. Bojan and where did we go? Kind of a crap thing.
Util?
Let's go Cabela. Ride it out.
Yeah.
Game stack. Land to Brooklyn on its way. So we'll flip Capella and Reith for James' sanity, and we'll go there for a favorite center overall. Well, depends. If you're playing on FanDuel tonight, again, I feel like you got to play Dua Breath for the value.
Dua Breath is, let's guess, 4K.
Yeah, basically min price, or is min price over there. So.
No, you're right. Basically,
yeah, I forget if they're 35 or
35. 40. Yeah, 35.
Yeah, so what's our rostership on Reith? It's probably
center only. FanDuel rostership on Dua Breath is actually not.
I went to the NBA, the NFL ownership wasn't helping myself.
Dua Breath is 13%. The chalkiest center, and it's actually there's 6 guys we have in double figures. Orlando Robinson at $4,500 getting the most love on FanDuel.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Starting has a good ceiling. I think there's a difference between $3,200 on DraftKings for Dua Breath,
sure,
when we're still not completely sure he's going to start, versus we've seen Orlando Robinson, the 3 games that he has been extended, 25 FanDuel points, 35 fantasy points, 30 fantasy points. And he's going to start. At least there's no reason he's not going to start, right?
I know DePrince said he was going to try DraftKings again earlier today, so I don't know if he's talking DraftKings or FanDuel.
If you're talking DraftKings for me, I would say Embiid if you can get to him.
Okay.
That would be for me if you can get
Dean Wade is back for Cleveland tonight. Will play off the bench, not going to start for them. So
that hurts I mean, Dean might not. He may not even play.
He may not even play at that point. Jabari Walker is the highest projected FanDuel player. So, I mean, make sure you have Walker in your lineup for sure, Prince, if you're on FanDuel. So.
Yeah.
Get in our Discord. I'm got the player pool coming out momentarily here. I was working on it during the show. The FanDuel one is being completed. That'll be published, and we'll have updates as any more news breaks. Guys, no live show tomorrow. We'll be back Friday with our live show. We'll have our listener league ready to go for then as well. If you have any questions, find us on Twitter. For now, though, we'll talk to you all on Friday. See you then.